Hello, especially for the Dirty Secrets channel.
The weight of revenge. Sarah and Michael celebrated their 10th anniversary at Bellini's, the same restaurant where they'd had their first date. The candlelight cast a warm glow across Michael's face as he reached for her hand. 10 years, he said, raising his glass. To the best decision I ever made. Sarah smiled, but something caught in her throat. They'd been happy once, truly happy, building their life together brick by brick. The charming colonial in the suburbs, their careers, and discussions about starting a family that had gradually faded into silence. To us, she replied, clinking her glass against his. Later that night, as Michael slept beside her, Sarah stared at the ceiling. When had they stopped talking, really talking? When had they become two people orbiting each other, close but never touching? The marketing team from Random House brought a refreshing energy to the quarterly meeting. Among them sat Daniel, new to the team, with intelligent eyes and a quiet confidence that Sarah couldn't help but notice. During her presentation, their eyes met briefly, and something electric passed between them. Impressive analysis, Daniel said afterward as they stood by the coffee station. You clearly understand what readers want before they do. That's the trick, isn't it? Sarah replied, anticipating desire. The words hung between them, heavy with unintended meaning. That evening, Michael came home late again. Sorry, he mumbled, barely looking up from his phone. The Henderson project is killing me. Sarah watched him retreat to his home office, the door closing with a soft click. When had they become strangers? Publishing conference in Chicago came at the perfect time. 3 days away from the silence at home. Sarah wasn't surprised to see Daniel there, but the flutter in her stomach caught her off guard. They found themselves in the same sessions, exchanging glances during particularly insightful comments or rolling their eyes at the industry jargon that filled the room. By the second day, they were saving seats for each other. There's a small group going to dinner at Marigold, Daniel said as they left the afternoon panel. Nothing fancy. Would you like to join? The small group turned out to be just 3 others, who begged off early, leaving Sarah and Daniel alone with a bottle of wine and conversation that flowed effortlessly into the night. I should get back, Sarah said finally, looking at her watch. Let me walk you, Daniel offered. Outside her hotel room, the silence between them pulsed with possibility. When he leaned in, she didn't step away. Sarah returned home with the weight of her transgression pressing against her chest. One night. That's all it had been. Yet everything looked different now, the photographs on the wall, the couch where she and Michael had spent countless evenings, the bed they shared. How was Chicago? Michael asked, his attention divided between her and his laptop. Fine, she said. Informative. The lie was easier than she'd expected, slipping from her lips like water. She unpacked methodically, placing her conference materials on the desk, hanging up her clothes, hiding the secret deep inside where no one could see it. That night, when Michael reached for her, she turned away, claiming exhaustion from travel. The truth was, she couldn't bear his touch, not with the memory of Daniel's hands still fresh on her skin. 2 weeks passed, then 3. Sarah threw herself into work, staying late at the office, avoiding the emptiness at home. Daniel's emails remained professional, but the subtext was clear in his casual suggestions to meet for coffee, to discuss a new manuscript over lunch. Not a good idea, she wrote back each time, even as her finger hovered longingly over his name in her contacts. Michael noticed her distance, making awkward attempts to bridge the gap. He brought home flowers one night, suggested a weekend getaway another. Sarah accepted these offerings with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her guilt multiplying with each kind gesture. Is everything okay? He asked finally, as they sat across from each other at dinner, the silence between them stretching thin. Just stressed about work, she replied, the lie becoming her shield. The text came on a Tuesday afternoon. I can't stop thinking about you. Can we talk? Sarah stared at Daniel's message, her heart racing. She should delete it, block his number, end this before it could go any further. Instead, she wrote back, Corner Café. Tomorrow. 1 p.m. The rational part of her brain screamed warnings as she sat across from Daniel the next day, watching his hands wrap around his coffee mug, the same hands that had traced patterns on her skin that night in Chicago. "I know this is complicated," he said, "but what happened between us felt real." "It was a mistake," Sarah insisted, even as she leaned closer. "I'm married." "Unhappily," he observed. The truth of it stung. When had her marriage become something she could step outside of so easily? "I should go," she said, standing abruptly. Daniel caught her hand. "Sarah." She pulled away, but the damage was done. Outside the café, an ashen-faced Michael stood frozen on the sidewalk, staring through the window at their intimate tableau. "How long?" Michael demanded, his voice breaking as they stood in their kitchen that evening, the space between them a battlefield. "It was one night," Sarah said, the half-truth bitter on her tongue. "In Chicago." It meant nothing. "And today?" "What was that?" "Just talking." "I was ending it." Michael's laugh was hollow. "Didn't look like ending it from where I stood." Sarah reached for him, but he stepped back as if her touch might burn. "Michael, please. It was a mistake. A terrible mistake." "Was it?" he asked, his eyes searching hers. "Or was it a symptom of something we've both been ignoring?" Truth lay between them, ugly and unavoidable. They hadn't been happy for a long time. "I think I need some time," Michael said finally, turning away. "I'm going to stay at Jason's for a few days." The sound of the front door closing behind him echoed through the empty house. Alone in the house that had once held their future, Sarah confronted the wreckage she had created. She called in sick to work, unable to face the possibility of seeing Daniel, of being reminded of her weakness. She wandered from room to room, seeing ghosts of their former happiness, Michael cooking breakfast on Sunday mornings, both of them painting the living room, laughing as they splattered each other with color, planning their future children's rooms. When had they lost that joy? It hadn't disappeared overnight. It had eroded slowly, worn away by missed connections, unspoken resentments, and the complacency that comes from assuming tomorrow will always be there to fix what's broken today. She picked up her phone a dozen times to call Daniel, seeking the momentary escape his attention provided, but set it down each time. He wasn't the answer. He was just another way of avoiding the questions. Michael returned after a week, looking tired but resolute. "We need to talk," he said, setting his bag by the door. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the distance between them both physical and emotional. "I've been thinking," Michael began. "About us. About where we went wrong." Sarah nodded, tears threatening. "Me too." "I wasn't present," he admitted. "I buried myself in work because it was easier than facing the fact that we were drifting apart." "And I didn't fight for us," Sarah said quietly. "I just let it happen." They agreed to try counseling, to make time for each other, to rebuild what had been broken. Sarah ended all contact with Daniel, changing her number and requesting a different team at work. For a while, it seemed to be working. They talked more, scheduled date nights, rediscovered small moments of connection. But beneath the surface, trust lay shattered. Michael's eyes followed her whenever she checked her phone. Sarah felt his questions in every silence. 3 months after Chicago, they sat in Dr. Levine's office for their weekly session. The therapist had become a neutral territory where they could speak truths that were too painful at home. "I'm trying," Michael said, his voice tight with frustration. "But every time you're late coming home, every time you look at your phone and smile, I wonder. I've given you no reason to doubt me since you betrayed everything we built together?" Michael finished, the hurt still raw. Dr. Levine leaned forward. "Michael, Sarah has been transparent since the affair. At some point, continuing to punish her becomes a choice. And what about my pain?" Michael demanded. "Is that a choice too?" The room fell silent. Sarah reached for Michael's hand, and for the first time in months, he didn't pull away. "I don't know if I can forgive you," he said finally, his voice breaking. "But I know I don't want to lose you." It wasn't a resolution, but it was honest, perhaps the most honest they'd been with each other in years. A year after Chicago, Sarah stood in their kitchen, watching Michael in the backyard, planting the cherry tree they'd bought the weekend before. They had sold the Colonial, unable to escape the memories it held, and moved closer to the city. The new house was smaller, but it was theirs, unburdened by the past. Their marriage wasn't perfect. They still had difficult days, moments when the old hurt surfaced without warning. But they had learned to talk through the pain rather than around it. They had learned that love isn't just a feeling but a daily choice. Sarah stepped outside, carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. Michael looked up as she approached, his smile cautious but genuine. "What do you think?" he asked, gesturing to the sapling. "It's perfect," she said, handing him a glass. "In a few years, it'll be beautiful." "A few years," he echoed, something like hope in his voice. "I think we can wait that long." Sarah leaned against him, feeling the solid warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. They had weathered the worst storm of their marriage and emerged changed but not destroyed. There would be other challenges, other tests of their commitment. But for now, standing in the dappled sunlight of their new beginning, Sarah allowed herself to believe in second chances. They had lost their way once. They wouldn't make that mistake again.
Thank you for watching. If you liked the story, like, subscribe to the channel and share with your friends. Thank you.